Welcome to Behind the Smokescreens, where we give you a raw and unfiltered look at what it's like to run a business as young entrepreneurs. In our line of work, we have the pleasure of creating relationships with a variety of characters. Influencers, athletes, models, digital media gurus, CEOs, and industry experts. And we'll be inviting them on to share with you. Sit back, grab a sip and a smoke as we take you behind the smokescreens. All right, everybody, welcome to Behind the Smokescreens. I have my co-host Laura Clark here. A special guest, John Carney from LFD Cigars, the Vice President of Sales. And we are sponsored by McDonald's. We have these lovely power smoothies. I have the mango. What flavor do you have?
I have strawberry, but I think it might have some banana in it, but it's heavy strawberry. It's delicious.
Are you picking up the banana notes?
I'm picking up something. I think it's the banana note.
We're loving it.
That's really good.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. By the way, what a friggin' sponsor.
I know.
Like, I come on here tonight. I come up here to Greensboro. I come to Havana Phil's. I walk in, and we come out to the back area here, the porch, and there's a lady out here with a bunch of smoothies, and you're like, oh, is this McDonald's? And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and you very calmly and nonchalantly tell me, oh, it's one of our sponsors, McDonald's.
Yeah. We have a very special person in our life who he has a bunch of McDonald's, and he loves our show. So he sent us these delicious smoothies, and it's how we get through this episode.
Yeah.
Powerful, energizing. I mean, you can't beat it. And
refreshing.
We have some steaks here, and they're going to go perfectly with that steak. So
The reason I bring this up, and maybe people watching, I'm not knocking McDonald's. I'm talking about the prowess of the advertising power of what's going on right now. This is massive corporate sponsorship. I know it's local here, but this is still massive corporate sponsorship.
Yeah.
This is definitely the largest sponsor. I've been on cigar shows before and like, oh, we're sponsored by XYZ Cigar Company. We open the show with BAM. We're sponsored by McDonald's.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Hey, it's pretty impressive.
You got to scale, you know?
Yeah.
It's just delicious.
It
Yeah.
is really
The
good.
more I drink it, the better I like it.
Very tasty. But
So-
don't drink it all because we got to save some room for these steaks. So not only are you the VP of sales, but you're also the founder of Hack and Gourmet.
Yeah, so during the lockdowns in 2020, in March, I was kind of relegated to the state of Maine, which was a great place to be. I mean, we've been talking earlier here. I live in a very tiny towns where I come from, and I spent a lot of time up there. But yeah, it was one of the best places to be stuck. But there was nothing going on. We couldn't travel. We couldn't do the normal things we were doing. And we started a little show, and I say we, my friend Brian McGee out of Texas, he's with Crown Head Cigars. We started this little cooking show called Quarantine Grilling. It was just for fun. It was something to do, and we started very early. And the concept behind it was really to kind of continue on some of the we've done some cooking events together. He and I actually had a competition. It's contested who actually won, but he has a championship belt. Coincidentally, he bought it for himself, so whatever. But
So it's not validated.
I don't think it's validated. He thinks it is, and it's fine, but it is what it is.
We'll let him have it.
Yeah, it's good. He's a great guy. He's a Marine, great guy. So I don't mess with him. But so we just started the show as something to do on top of other things during the evenings. So we started doing a show every Monday called Quarantine Grilling, and the plan as we got into it was to mature it into something that we could do once things slowly started to get back to normal, and kind of have cigar-related cooking events, and bring the culinary world into cigars, which is something which we all do anyway, right? We all have a big meal, have a nice meal, and then we sit down and have a cigar. Why not bring that meal to the cigar shop and bring it to the cigar world? And then our friend Fred Rui, he used to own a cigar company called Nomad Cigars, got involved about our second or third show. He liked it, and he said, hey, I'd be happy. He was bored as well because he couldn't travel doing what he was doing. And we brought him on. He's our meter-rater on the Hacking Gourmet show. But the whole goal was...
Meter-rater?
Yeah,
what
meter-rater.
Is that?
It's like a moderator, only he moderates the meat, so meter-rater.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it took him like 12 shows to be able to pronounce it correctly. He does pretty well now. But the whole concept was to, one, fill our time, keep things relevant, do something that was unique. And we got better every week, and we still get better now with all of our productions. But the real goal was to try to produce something that we could take to a cigar shop and involve cigars and have something that would be the natural progression from where we were at with COVID. And that turned into our Flor Dominicana Gourmet Smoke Sessions. But even before that, I was, Brian and I and myself, I post a ton of steak online. I consider myself a steak chef. People say I'm a chef. I'm a steak chef. I can do other things too, but Hacking Gourmet grew into something from it, quarantine grilling, and now it's become part of what we're doing around the country, and it's been really fun. And we're slowly getting to be able to do it in person. I know we have plans to do something here. We're going to talk about doing something here for the summer, hopefully. It's turned into something fun, and it's really innovative, and it's easy for me to say it because I innovated it, but it is innovative at the same time. So it's really been fun. It's enjoyable, and who doesn't want to eat, steak and really nice food and have a nice cigar and have a nice drink? And
Vegans.
Yeah. Well, coincidentally, my lady friend, I refer to her as my lady friend. She is vegetarian. Shockingly.
Oh.
Wow.
And however,
how does she live with you?
Yeah.
You probably smell like steaks.
Coincidentally, she actually really respects a lot of culinary things, and her father's a chef. She just doesn't really personally enjoy the texture of meat. It's just something for her. She just never was big for her in her life. But I really, honestly, to answer your question, I have no idea how she handles it.
So did you force yourself into all the cooking now that you've started this and kind of upped your game a little bit, or are you guys splitting 50-50?
Well, the fun thing is having a vegetarian as your significant other is great because vegetarian dishes make for great side dishes for steak.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, I'm sure
so
that
it's a logical progression because you can do pasta dishes.
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower is great.
Oh, yeah.
Broccoli, there's all sorts of great things you do with broccoli, like this Bang Bang broccolis.
Yeah.
We actually went to this vegan restaurant in Miami called Planta, and when we went there, it was fantastic. They kind of transformed dishes. They kind of tasted like meat, honestly, some of them. But when I came back...
It's wild how they do that.
Oh, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So we came back, and I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, side dishes. Like, your entree is my side dish.
Yeah.
So I can cook a steak and make this great side dish, or you can make a great side dish and I can make a steak. So it was really just a perfect kind of marriage of it where it kind of worked out great. And yeah, so people are like, oh, how do you deal with that? And like, first of all, it's not that big of a deal.
Sure.
But it's a perfect side dish. So I'll prepare a nice vegan side dish or vegetarian side dish and a nice steak, and it works out well. But we've got a couple fun things. I am gonna start cooking a little bit, and you guys can ask some questions. But I did bring 2 steaks for us tonight. I've got.
Do you eat steak?
I do eat steak.
Perfect. Well, good. We got a lot of it for 3. So we have a couple steaks here. This is from my meat purveyor, Meat and Bone.
We have 4 people.
Wow, we do have 4. Well, hopefully he doesn't go hungry.
Yeah, we have plenty.
Yeah, well, our friends at McDonald's can take care of us. They're open late.
Yeah.
We'll drink a little more of our smoothies.
Here's a good smoothie. So we've got a couple steaks here. First one we got is a 45 plus dry aged porterhouse, USDA prime. This is from meatandbone.com. Dry aging is a process that breaks down the muscle tissues, and it essentially draws moisture out of the beef. But when you're drawing moisture out of the beef, which is fat, is essentially where the moisture's at, it draws that fat through the protein in the muscle and creates a really unique flavor profile. So we've got the porterhouse, which is a filet mignon and a New York strip. And then the creme de la creme tonight. I know you've been excited about this. This is the 60-day plus bone-in cowboy ribeye, dry-aged 60 days plus, infused with Miami Magic City gin.
Wow.
So I'm going to cut these open. I'm going to put a little salt.
It's gin?
60-day dry-aged plus, infused with Miami-made Magic City gin.
Ooh, Magic City gin.
Yep.
Cool.
So I'm going to cut these open. We're not going to do olive oil tonight. These are both fatty cuts of meat, so the fat's going to be there. There's enough fat. We don't need to introduce more fat to it. We're just going to hit them with some kosher salt on each side, and we're going to cook these suckers. We're going to give them some resting time. It's going to take about 45 minutes, and we're going to have a nice, perfectly medium rare cigar is what I was going to say, but medium rare steak.
Hell yeah.
So here we go. Let's get these cut open.
This gets
And
me
what's going
jacked
on?
up. I
Does
love
it?
this.
Yeah, this is big.
I don't know why. Cooking meat like makes you excited.
Well, it's primal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So here we go. We'll cut these open.
Have you ever grilled a steak, Laura?
You know, I can't say that I have ever grilled a steak. John, if you were going to give advice to somebody who's not experienced with grilling, where would you start? Like, what
I
are your
would
tips
start
and
by
tricks?
finding some funds to hire me to come and cook it. No, I
love that.
The problems that I find with people who are getting started in cooking steak or are inexperienced with it are you don't want. We're going to do a thing tonight. It's called tempered cooking.
Okay.
We're going to apply high heat for a short period of time, and then we're going to let it rest. And what resting is we're going to set it aside. And you can see here, this is prime. Marbling on here is incredible. Marbling is the distribution of fat throughout the protein, throughout the muscle. They tend to cook it too long because you want a medium rare steak. Medium rare should be a nice medium pink from edge to edge. So people will cook it until they have a nice medium pink in the middle, and then it's overcooked on the outside. So it tends to be too much cooking, too much time on heat. With a protein like this, it's just not chicken. Like if you cook this at a lower temperature, other than 165, it doesn't have a lot of bacteria. It's not going to give you E. coli or things like that.
We could eat that raw.
We could definitely eat this raw.
But we're not going to.
And we're not going to. But you want to give it rest. So you want it to cook and you want it to absorb the heat. Because if you just let it cook to the temperature you're trying to get to, it's going to absorb the heat, but it's going to be absorbing too much heat. So we want to give it just the right amount of heat.
So you don't sear it.
We're searing it, but we're not going to sear it until it gets to the temperature we want. We're going to sear it, let it rest, and we're going to give it a couple different sears. We're going to probably do 3 different sears here. And what we're going to do is they're going to get sears for maybe, the first sear is going to be 2 minutes on each side, possibly 3. This is a big, thick cut. This is about 2 inches thick. And then we're going to let it rest for about 10 minutes. And during that 10 minutes, it's going to absorb the heat. Then we're going to put it back on for another minute or so, maybe 2 minutes at the most, and then we're going to let it rest. It's going to absorb the heat. And then we're going to do it one more time, and then we're going to let it absorb the heat, and then we're going to cut it. It's going to be cooked perfectly from edge to edge. So we're letting the heat do the work, and we're letting that happen away from the grill. We're introducing heat, and then letting the heat be absorbed.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. And it takes a little bit of effort and takes a little bit of time. And I get it. It's real easy to throw a steak on and try to cook it until
Watch
it's
the
ready to go.
smoothie there.
Those smoothies fight back. So yeah, the key is resting time. And also another thing I'll tell you, a lot of people like to eat their steaks hot.
Yeah.
They want food hot. If you're eating your steak hot, you're missing out on the benefits of the beef reabsorbing moisture.
Okay.
So this is pretty advanced. So this is ridiculous. You got this? Look at the marbling on that.
Wow. Beautiful.
Marbling is the distribution of fat throughout the muscle.
So how do you get meat like this?
It's got to be raised right. And then take a smell on that. Smell a little bit of funk. This is dry aged.
Yeah. Little botanical.
And then you got not as much funk here.
Let me
So
get a little
funk?
sniff. Bring that over here.
A little funk,
Okay.
no funk. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
That's a dry aging process.
Okay.
So what that does is breaking down the fats, and it's bringing that and drawing it through the drawing it through to the muscle, which is going to tenderize it and also improve the flavor.
Okay.
So we're just going to hit it with some kosher salt.
This is like a cooking show.
Very liberally.
I love to watch Chopped. And
Unfortunately, we're not on a time restraint here.
I
Chops
know.
is so stressful.
do you ever think you'd be interested in doing something like that as it continues?
I have,
Uh-huh.
and I've also thought at the same time, I'm like, Holy shit, that would be really stressful.
I think you would be good.
You would. I watch like really well-trained chefs do that.
Sure.
And they get their butts kicked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how could I go on there? Now, I still think I might be able to do it, but it's unique. I mean, that's a challenging show.
But you're kind of one-track minded with the cooking.
Well, what I would
You have
do
no
is...
diversity in your portfolio.
I do have some, but if I was on Chopped, I'd just be throwing steaks on. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to do about 2 minutes, 3 minutes on each side. Since these are thick steaks, we are going to shut the top. Because remember, we're going to let it rest. We're not just going to leave them in there forever. We're going to let these rest. So it's fine to shut the top. That'll perform a direct sear at the same time as well as doing indirect heat. So we're going to leave that about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes on that side. Then we're going to flip it over. And then we're going to open these up. And we're going to set them there and let them rest for a bit. But while we wait, let's smoke.
In the meantime, Fwynn, can you zoom in on this? Do you have that capability?
Yeah.
On the cigar? Put it out there. So there's a cigar, or there's a football on this cigar. Can you see that?
Yep.
So what's the story behind this?
So what we're smoking right now is the 2021 Special Football Edition. This was made for the Super Bowl in Tampa this year.
Okay.
It's not the Super Bowl cigar because we can't use that term. It's called the Special Football Edition. And it's loosely tied to every year where the Super Bowl is at the host city and the host state. We release a cigar. This is our 7th release. We actually did an 8th release, which was made for the University of Alabama. In that area. It was a special football edition called the Cigar Game. Every year, Alabama beats the crap out of Tennessee, the third week of October, and it's called the Cigar Game. So we did make an 8th edition for that. But every year we make a special football edition celebrating the game of football, and it surrounds around the Super Bowl. So this year's was in Tampa, and this is the Tampa edition.
Beautiful.
Very cool.
So do they smoke these in the locker room when they beat Tennessee?
So this one's for the host city of the Super Bowl.
Right.
The one we did for Alabama, I'm not sure if they actually have smoked this. Some of the players probably have. That's a little challenging because of NCAA stuff. Like, we don't market it to the players.
Sure.
We don't try to get them in there. In the NFL, we've been trying to get in the locker rooms, but it seems like this year when Tampa won, they smoked the Davidoff Tampa edition, which was made for the big game. And then the Patriots won a few times there, like 6 times, and Brady just won again for the 7th. I'm checking my watch to make sure the time's good.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. But I know they smoked the Davidoff this year in Tampa, which is fine. We try to get it in there, and it's just a matter of who runs into the store and what they grab.
Yeah.
So we haven't had them in the locker rooms yet in terms of an official setting. I'm sure that some of the players have had them before and had them in there, so we'll see. But the goal is always to get them there. And it's funny because Lito's son, Tony, always says to me, I know you know Tony. Tony's always like, dude, he said, you have one job to get these in the locker room. Every year he busts my balls. He's like, you had one job to get this in the locker room. And I was like, man, I tried.
It's the football cigar. You got to get it in.
Yeah.
But the one time I finally get it, we'll be happy. That'll be good. So, and I'm going to flip these. You can see they're getting some good color here.
Are you not worried about the flames?
I'm not worried about the flames at all because we want crust. We want sear on the outside. That crust is going to give us some flavor. When the fire hits the outside of this protein, it's going to give it a little bit of char and a little bit of burn. And we also liberally salted these, and we're going to salt them again at the end. So that char with the salt is going to create some really good flavor profile. So we're going to go for another 2.5, 3 minutes here. Then we're going to pull them off for a rest.
Okay.
Resting is the key. High heat for a short period of time, and the rest. And we're going to do that 3 times, and then we're going to have not three, it's technically 3 steaks. We've got a filet on the porterhouse, the New York strip, and the ribeye, but we're going to have 2 steaks that are perfectly cooked medium rare.
Okay.
Resting's key. That's one thing you asked earlier, Laura. What advice would you give? Rest the meat. Do not eat it hot.
Yeah.
Right when you pull it off the grill is not the time to cut it. Because you pull a steak off the grill, you put it on the cutting board, and you cut into it, the first thing you see is moisture, right? There's water, there's juices pouring out of it. We want that inside the meat because that's where the flavor is coming from. So if that's on your cutting board, it's not in your steak.
Got it.
Resting is going to help absorb
It's
that
not
back
in your
protein.
mouth.
It's 100%. It's on your cutting board.
Right.
You can take a fork and spread it around, but it's not the same as having that in the actual protein.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys started your show, did you learn a lot of this stuff like trial by error? Did you do research? Like how did you kind of get going with that and know that you were going to end up with a good product?
So I grew up in the restaurant business,
Uh-huh.
but I'd say the last 10 to 12 years I really started to kind of get into red meat.
Okay.
And I started doing trial by error. There was different techniques I was trying to use and from different steakhouses I went to when I traveled with cigars. So I just found a technique that worked and that I really liked.
Yeah.
And this tempered cooking thing is essentially a slow process of bringing beef up to a consistent temperature, which creates a very even cook. And but yeah, it was a lot of trial by error.
Yeah.
So when we started the actual show and then started doing the Hacking Gourmet sessions with LFD, we kind of worked out all the kinks, and I've been working on it. So, for me now, sometimes I'll cook a steak and I'm worried it's not going to come out well, and it still comes out well. It comes out the way I want it to. And that's because it's the resting period. So, but it was a ton of trial by error. I mean, I cooked a ton of really awful stuff.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
This smoke coming from the grill, if you see that, I would be so stressed right now if I was cooking for like a girl or something like that. Like that fire coming from the grill, I'd be freaking out.
Pure panic mode.
Yeah.
So we've got char on the outside. We've got fire. And this was just the first time we cooked it.
Yeah.
So we're going to let this really rest. And this is the first judge of where we're going to be at. So we've got some good char going on here. We got some good temperature. We're going to let this rest. This is the good thing about the resting period. Is if you spend a little more time, you got a little more fire, which we got. We're going to let this rest a little longer. And we may not hit it 3 times. We may just go twice.
Okay.
So in between here, since we're not using any olive oil on here, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of salt. We're going to let these rest a little bit more here on the top. And we're about a 10 to 15 minute rest time now. So I'm feeling this here not for temperature. I'm watching this. It's a little bit expanded. The moisture's working its way out. We're going to let that absorb back in. And yeah, we're probably going to go one more time with this. We probably won't go 3 because we did get this one, especially the ribeye. You can notice here, ribeye has higher fat, so it's a little more charred. And outside, it cooks down and renders down the fats, what's creating the fire. And you can see the porterhouse here doesn't have as much char at all.
So most people I know don't cook steaks like this. They don't let it rest for 15 minutes, then put it back on the grill, then let it rest, then put it back on the grill. Is there any way you could text us or send us an email of these directions so we can put it in the caption and give these people
Absolutely.
A
a perfect
tutorial,
way
yeah.
to cook a steak?
It's funny that you asked me that because I had a really good friend of mine from Orlando. His name's Joey. And over COVID, he wanted to cook some steaks for his family. So he called me up. He's like, I want to use your technique. So he calls me. And we FaceTime and we cooked together. And they came out great. And he's like, oh my gosh. And the whole time he's freaking. I was like, oh, it's too much fire. There's too much of this. I'm like, just relax. It's going to be all right. So we got him done. He served them to his family, his wife, and his kids. And they're like, oh my God, Daddy, this is so good. Blah, blah, blah. It was funny because he sent me the videos. He's like, how come your steaks don't usually taste like this? It was funny. So last night he called me at like 10:30 at night or texted me. He's like, hey, can you talk? And I was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, I'm doing something. He's like, hey, I need some steak advice. I was like, in. So I was like, all right, cool. So he had this tomahawk ribeye, which is just the ribeye with the bone not cut off, essentially. And he goes, yeah, my brother-in-law is going back to the Dominican Republic, and he bought this nice steak, blah, 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 blah. He's like, can we cook it together? So I told him what to do. So he's sending me pictures the whole time. And the reason I bring it up is because you said, oh, the fire and the smoke. He's like, man, he goes, there's lots of flare-ups. He goes, there's tons of fire and smoke. And I'm like, remember, you got a big piece of meat. It can take a lot of punishment from the fire. And the key is the resting phase.
It's like a boxing match.
Exactly. it really is, though. Like, it is.
Yeah.
It can take it. It can handle it. It can handle the char. And again, once that first session on the grill is huge. So like now I'm looking at the steak, it's got some char. It's not going to go on as long the next time. This is going to rest longer. This one's going to go on a little bit more. That first char is so important, and the last char is important. The last time on the grill is important. So anyway, he cooked the steak. It came out freaking perfect. He's like, oh my God. He goes, man, this is great. Thank you so much. I was like, perfect. I was like, just trust me, because I said, whatever happens, I go, leave it on. He's like, what's flaring up? He's like, there's flames.
What was the point where your mindset changed from stress to, let's not worry about this, I know the key to cooking steaks?
So I started messing around probably like 3 years ago with large amounts of charcoal. So I'd put like 60 pounds of charcoal down to cook one steak, which creates high...
Is that a lot? I mean,
it's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because you create high intensity heat, so you got a really intense heat. So with charcoal, if you use
What's a bag of charcoal weigh?
Oh, like probably 30 pounds,
30
40 pounds,
yeah.
depending on the size. But I started experimenting with high heat with charcoal, and then the charcoal would be like right here, and the grill grate would be right here. So it was almost exactly on the charcoal. So I started working with that probably 2 years ago, maybe 3, and I started going high heat. I screwed some steaks up, then I was finally like, all right, where I'm messing this up is I need to make sure that I really let these steaks rest. And it can take a lot, I can't take it forever, but what happens is you're going to see here is you're going to have a thing called, we call in hacking gourmet crust threshold.
okay.
Is that trademarked?
No.
It should be.
No, I can't afford that yet. But what we just did is create crust threshold, essentially, and flavor threshold.
Okay.
Is we created a level of a thickness of crust, and it's going to be a really even cook inside. And I'll show it at the end, but that's a really unique question. So, again, I screwed up a lot of steaks. I've screwed up a lot of things, and that's how people learn, and that's how you learn to figure out what's the best practice. And for me, the resting has been huge. High heat, short period of time, long rest period. And we can post it on. I'll give you the information on what we did tonight.
Yeah.
And I advise people, it just takes patience. Like, it's really hard not to eat this right now.
Yeah. I mean, it looks delicious right now. Ready to roll, but it's not. We have
We have
2 more grill sesh.
The porterhouse is going to go 2 more. The ribeye is going to get 1 more. So that ribeye is going to rest for another about 6 or 7 minutes. I'm going to put the porterhouse on for a minute on each side. I'm going to shut the top, and then I'm going to bring it out and let it rest, and I'll put it on for about 30 to 45 seconds. That ribeye is close to done.
And the ribeye is the gin infused?
Yeah, it's a gin infused, Magic City Gin. It's a gin company from Miami. And that Meat and Bone partnered with them. And the gin infused is probably my favorite steak they have. It's 60 plus days. They say 60 plus. It could be anything more than 60. Traditionally, their 60 plus days are close to 90 at the end of it. And all that does is just create more flavor profile. It's like aging and fermenting tobacco, or aging and fermenting grapes and liquor and things like that. So it's just going to have really intense flavors to it, and really refined.
Beautiful. So let's get into the cigar industry. Let's talk about this real quick. I'm wondering what your take on the cigar boom is. I mean, that's a talk around town. It's a talk around the industry. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? Because you're inside it. You're in it. So.
Well, it's interesting because there's a great day to ask it. Cigar Aficionado just came out with their report about imports in the United States.
I just saw that.
There's over 360 million cigars. And this isn't numbers that we've seen in terms of imports since the early 90s, when there's this thing going on, the cigar boom. You hear it all the time. And I mean, we were too young for it. But there was, in the early 90s, the cigars blew up. Premium cigars were getting big. I mean, there was Johnny Carson was smoking cigars on The Tonight Show. Michael Jordan was smoking cigars before and during basketball games.
Sopranos came out.
Yeah, Sopranos came 100%. It became very acceptable. And in reality, it's
Tom
also...
Selleck on Friends.
Tom Selleck
Ooh.
Really loved him.
on Friends.
I just
What a
remember
nugget.
him.
That's
He was
what
always
Laura brings
smoking
to
the cigar.
table.
That was part of his character. I remember
Co-host for the win.
that. Listen, I'm
Let's
just
go.
Tom
saying.
Selleck on Friends.
I have a big Tom Selleck thing, so I just always remember him with that cigar.
Yeah, from Friends, though.
From
It's
Friends.
funny that you know Tom Selleck from Friends, because there's other shows that people might know Tom Selleck from.
Oh, sure. Well, that was when I was watching Friends, when it was coming on as reruns
Okay.
instead of being premiered. So, yeah. Definitely some room there.
We were born in the early 90s. So,
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I know. I was born in the early 80s, but we were all too young for the Cigar Boom.
True. Very true.
You were part of the Cigar Boom,
Yeah.
actually. You could have been a Cigar Boom baby.
I was.
You were a Cigar Boom baby.
Yeah. That's why I'm here right now.
Honestly. By the way, this is the first time I've been up here, which is shocking, and I've told you this a number of times. I'm embarrassed.
It's
this is the
almost
first time.
hurtful.
I know it should be. It should be. But I'm glad I am, and I will make this a regular thing now. But this is great. Beautiful, beautiful establishment. I like that you guys kept the Anton sign up there from the restaurant it was before, but what a beautiful lounge. But yeah, we're in a Cigar Boom. Like, what other things can you do for, like, let's even just talk numbers. Like, what else can you do? Like, let's talk a high-end cigar, like a high-end Davidoff, like $30. What can you do for $30 for an hour of entertainment? You can't do anything, really.
Nothing, yeah.
I mean, Disney World costs like freaking $150 to go a day. Things are expensive, and the environment with lockdowns created a unique thing for online cigar sales. Obviously grew, but brick and mortar was going nuts.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's places that aren't doing great, but for the vast majority of the premium cigar industry, in terms of manufacturers, retailers, online retailers, smaller retailers, beautiful retail shops like this, business is good.
Yeah.
And it's because people have been home. We're not traveling as much. Times are changing. Times are going to stay somewhat changed. It's not going to go back to what it was 2 years ago. And what else can you do but have a cigar? I mean, for $5, you can come and grab a cigar in this humidor and have a good experience and enjoy your time. There's nothing you can do for that. And also what's happened is...
You could get a haircut.
I
Not
think
a good
haircuts
one.
cost way more than that. Laura,
Yeah.
Not a good one.
a haircut's more than $30.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Where do you get your haircut for $5?
Not $5.
Don't advertise it.
But $30 you can get a haircut.
Yeah, but you can. Or you can have a cigar and smoke it for 2 hours and have a cocktail, a coffee, or whatever. Or come and buy a cigar and take it home and enjoy it outdoors.
Yeah,
Right.
you made a good point, though. I mean, things are getting more expensive, and this has been the most isolated year for a lot of people. So that's something you can still do on your own time in your house or wherever you feel comfortable and still enjoy it. It doesn't change that factor for anybody.
You know, and fortunately, from the hard work of your family and you have a beautiful cigar lounge, so this is a destination.
Yeah.
But even with that, you know, I can say you're a consumer and you buy cigars online. That's always the thing people don't want to talk about. A large portion of cigars are bought online. So you're at COVID happens, you're sitting at home, and you're buying your cigars online. You can't leave your house, you can't do this. The cigar lounge has become a haven for this is what I'm going to go out and do today.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and go to the grocery store, and then I'm going to go to the cigar lounge. And if I'm allowed to smoke there for regulations, I'm going to smoke there. And if I can, I'm going to grab some cigars so I can have some interaction.
Yeah.
And this is a special interaction. It's not like going to a liquor store and buying liquor. You're going into a specialty store, buying something, and having a great experience. So this is a way of people going out. And as the times changed, and they continue to change and mature and see where the future's at, there's very little you can do that matches this experience. Like what we're doing now. I mean, look at what we're doing now. We're drinking McDonald's smoothies. We've got steaks resting there. Yeah, it's high-end stuff, but like we got some McDonald's smoothies and cigars. I mean, reality.
Some good wine.
Yeah, and some good wine. But take away all that stuff. If we just had the cigar and the smoothies, we're having a great time.
Yeah,
For what?
100%.
For like, what, $10?
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. And you can't do that. And it's really special to see brick and mortar have the success it's having now. And if you aren't, I mean, I feel bad. But there's opportunity out there, and this business has definitely grown, and this is a side effect of something that's really challenging was the growth of the premium cigar business.
100%, and we create that community feel, and that's what people want because they're not traveling, they're not getting out there, they can't go to the bars anymore, so they come to the cigar store, and they feel like they're seeing their family.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like every time I come in here, it's a lot of the same people, and I think
Because
that speaks so highly to the brand. Yeah,
Because
That you're
they
spending
are
your
seeing
time.
their family.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, reality. I
Yeah.
mean, you saw what your dad built, and you're carrying it on the same way he was, which is really special. And you should be proud of that. because that's what that was about. When you come to Havana Phil's, you were seeing Havana Phil, and now you're seeing Havana Phil. That's
I
a
just
real
told him the
thing.
other night, I said, you're a celebrity when you're here.
But it
Everybody
is.
wants to come over
It
and say
is.
hey and talk to you and like get in a word with you, and that's
It-
special. Like
yeah.
you're not gonna find that.
It's just
everywhere.
a unique connection, and you don't have it in bars. You and I were talking about it a little bit earlier too, Laura, where it was like, places that are closed earlier because I guess there's
Yeah.
still a curfew here, but. So it's
11 p.m.
Yeah, so you got like McDonald's is open late at night because they're allowed to be and whatever. But you look at these situations, it's like things aren't just going to go back to being open 24 hours a day because of costs and until they figure it out. And there's a lot of absorption of unneeded costs on certain levels. Cigars absorbed it. I think the cigar business is looking good in this situation, and it's a really special thing to see. And we all knew it.
Yeah.
We always talked about it. We're like, oh, cigars are special. It's a community. It's just there's no better time than we've ever seen in our lifetimes than this last year.
We wanted to make cigars cool again.
And it is.
Yeah.
It really is. So it's special, and I don't see it going away. If it does go away, brick and mortars need to be innovative. We've talked earlier about events. Having somebody from a cigar company come and stand in your front door with a tablecloth and try to sell cigars to people is not going to work.
Yeah.
People don't want that. They want experiences now. They want them even more. And we've already shown that this business can grow and have a boom in this period of time. So now that as we slowly open up, we got to give them better experiences. And if you aren't doing that, I highly recommend it. Seek it out, even if it doesn't have to be something you have to spend a ton of money on. Just do something different. And reward the people who really supported what you're doing during a challenge time, and they're going to reward you back too.
And if you're a cigar store listening, something that we've done is during the COVID period, the lockdown period, we've had couples dinners where it's been an intimate setting, we socially distanced, but we brought in a chef and they cooked outside of our store and brought it in, plate by plate, small plates, and it was just an experience that you can't get anywhere in North Carolina, and we created that for them, and it was a huge success,
Well, and also, what a unique thing! What industry has been hampered the most by these lockdowns? Restaurants, right? McDonald's has done fine because they have great drive-through. McDonald's doesn't need dining rooms.
Yeah.
Their business has been huge.
DoorDash,
Wendy's,
Uber
DoorDash,
Eats,
Uber Eats, all
We're
that stuff.
loving it.
Subway. Yeah, we are. I want McDonald's to sponsor me, Dan. I'll freaking cook double quarter pounders with cheese at every goddamn event.
Hell yeah.
But so like bringing a restaurant in during that time, they're happy to do stuff because
Yeah.
they're going to be at 20% occupancy if you're in New York. You got to be here. You got to be there. These restaurants got
Oh,
destroyed.
yeah, well, you think about the people aside from that work there, your servers, your bartenders, your back of house, everybody like that. They're living day to day because when you're in that industry, you're making cash money. So if you don't have enough, you're going back to work the next day.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
when that stops, you're kind of SOL.
So it said, you mentioned it said if you're a retailer watching, you're looking for creative things. You don't have to do a 10-course meal, but seek things out in your community.
Yeah.
Like find somebody that's doing something that's struggling and be like, hey, why don't you come in here and let's all try to benefit. If you're ever a wine person, there's all these little tiny wine. There's a little wine store in my town in Lincoln, Maine. And it used to be called Wood Duck. I can't remember what they changed the name to because they got sued by a company in Long Island. But it was just a little wine tasting room in my town of 2,200 people. Like, find a little wine person and have them come in and talk about their wine. Because, like, even if they can't sell wine there that night, if you can sell them 10 bottles of wine and they can go to your store, it makes a big difference. I'm sure that restaurant and that chef had people that sought them out because they were here.
Yeah.
It's just a huge thing. Be creative. Don't be stuck where you're at. If you're doing well, continue to improve and seek out new things. And if you're in a spot where you're comfortable and fine, just don't be stuck there for too long. Because there's a lot of unique situations here and it can change quick.
Every member we had at that dinner went to that restaurant afterwards, and they're now regulars at that restaurant. So, like, every brick and mortar store has a restaurant near them that they could contact and be like, hey, let's do this event, and then you'll benefit from this, I'll benefit from that, and we'll make a beautiful thing.
And it's easy. It's not hard because when you bring professionals from other sides, you professionally do cigars and cocktails and wine and beer. They professionally do food. So let me provide the environment. You provide what you're great at, and we'll make sure nobody loses money, and everybody's going to have a great experience, and everyone's going to win. As I said, there's opportunity in every challenging experience, which obviously this last 16 months has been challenging. We still have challenges, but it's improving. There's opportunity. And if you're not looking for opportunity, I had people at the beginning of this when COVID hit, our factories closed and we laid off some of our staff. It was tough because I travel with these guys.
Yeah.
And you guys, it'd be hard to lay off more people,
Yeah. So, I mean, we laid off a significant portion of our staff. We're a smaller company, but, I mean, substantial in terms of recognition. We were very successful, fortunately, and we were throughout COVID. I'm not going to lie. It was very good for us. But our factories closed in March when the regulations hit, and we had to close. So there was no cash flow, no this, no that. And we didn't know when we were going to be able to open up. And, I've had people ask, like, well, do I lay off now and look like a jerk, or do I wait until June and I have no money left?
Yeah.
And then I lay everyone off.
Sure.
So you had to make a decision. When cash flow changed, we had made a decision. So I had people during the beginning of that. So we made layoffs, and it wasn't something that was comfortable. Obviously, it sucked.
Of course.
These guys are my friends. This business is very close to people you work with. You share hotel rooms with them.
Yeah.
You fall asleep next to them at the end of the night, practically. And it was tough. And remember, business had to be business, and that is what it is. But I had people call me up and said, "Oh, you're being insensitive by posting pictures of steak and this and that." And I said, first of all, you can F yourself. I go, because I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing, and I have a job to do, and I'm also my own self. I got to put food on my table, literally and figuratively. I go, but if you're sitting here being stagnant right now because you're afraid of offending somebody by cooking food, I go, you need to be being innovative right now. And I've had conversations with these same people, and I'm personally outspoken with them, so if somebody questioned me, I would speak my mind.
Right.
But no, you got to innovate. Like, what are you going to sit there like, my government said I got to shut down, so now I do is just curl up in a ball in the corner?
No, this is
No, we
probably
got to find out, how do I do business?
Yeah, that people really
Like, how do I
had
make money?
time to do something that they wanted to do or had the opportunity to like go out on a limb and try something new. So there's no shame in that.
Yeah, and by the way, like, what if they took this business away from you? What do you do? Like what do you do? You got to figure, this is your life. Same thing with me. Like, cigars is my life, so I have this steak stuff, but like, I'm not going to stop doing my food cooking because that might offend somebody. Yeah. And if it offends you, get over it. But no, I got to keep advancing my life. What if my job was gone? What if my company had to close down? Fortunately, we're in a good spot. We don't have to. But like, what if they did? Like, what am I going to do? Sit there and be like, well, man, I'm glad I didn't do anything for 8 months because I was going to offend somebody. Anyway.
So, where are we at with these steaks?
All right,
Are you keeping track of this?
Yeah,
we're good.
For the past 14 and a half
It looks
minutes.
so good right now.
Little did you know when you brought me on this show that I kind of take over. So this is pretty good. We're going to put this on for a little bit more. This has got a little bit more time for it.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. We might be able to even cut into that one. All right. So for the sake of time, they're both going to go on here for another 1.5 to 2 minutes on each side.
Okay.
I'm not going to shut the top this time because they already absorbed a lot of heat.
Right.
When we yank this off,
Does that take away from the flaring of the flames? Yeah.
when it's shut, you're going to have more heat, which is going to create more moisture pulling out of the muscle,
Okay.
which is going to create more fire.
Yeah.
So we're going to leave this one here.
Yeah. Write it
So
down.
what's going to happen here, Phil and Laura, is when this ribeye comes off, it's going to be a 5-minute rest, and then we're going to eat it.
Okay.
Cool.
And this one's going to rest for about 10 minutes. And we'll try that one too.
Cool. So we don't need a third one.
No.
Cool.
No, I don't think we need a third on any of these. We just need a long rest period. That ribeye's ready to roll. One thing I might do is pull this off and then shut the top on this.
Yeah.
Again, it's all by the eye and the touch. That ribeye's getting close.
So I have a thing that I do at my house. I buy steak from, a butcher shop.
By the way, Frankie is now licking the tongs. If we can get a shot of that. Thank you, Frankie.
Frankie's happy to be a
This is a
chef.
golden doodle?
Golden noodle, yeah. She's a runt.
She's the best. Anyway,
She is
sorry,
the
back to the house.
Yeah, so I have this method I use. I buy steak from a butcher shop. Typically, they're filled with juice. So I put them on a cutting board, season them, let them sit for like 5 days in my fridge, uncovered. And it creates this like nice, like tough texture on top. Throw them on the grill, and it's usually delicious.
So that's referred to as wet aging. It's essentially a dry aging process if you were to have it in a controlled environment, but that's essentially wet aging. So if you have a steak, it's a steak that's cut and they let it sit and it's sitting in its own situation. That's called wet aging. Yeah, it's delicious. It creates a little crust. It's great.
Would you say that's effective?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want it to go too long because you're going to have bacteria on the outside if you let it go too long.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's totally.
Phil just wants you to tell him that he's a good
I just wanted some validation.
It is.
Yeah.
Resting in that time is equally as good. The only thing I would say that you might want to do is if you put it in that stage, hit it with a bunch of salt on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's going to, like a dredge.
Yeah.
So a dredge would be, so you get that outside crust you're kind of getting would be covered in salt and be even better.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Validated.
Yeah, no,
That's all I
that's
eat.
not a bad thing. Don't let it go too long, though, because it is perishable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
5, 7 days.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's fine. This is going to be really good in about 5 minutes. I'm going to let that sit for about 2, then we're going to pull that out.
The key is resting.
It is. And you've got to accept the fact you're not going to eat it hot. You're going to eat it at like 100 degrees, 95. There's people that just like, oh, I have to eat my food hot. I agree. Don't eat your steaks hot. Like, you do not want to eat your steak hot. If you're going to eat it hot, you're going to lose all the flavor.
What about in a restaurant when you don't have control?
That's what I was going to ask.
Great minds think alike.
It's brutal. When it shows up, let it rest at the table for 5-10 minutes.
I don't think you understand that none of us, well,
Order
maybe
something
you-
else to snack on
Yeah.
while you're waiting.
What if it's on a hot plate?
Take it off.
I
Because
was
it's
like,
going to
I
absorb
don't
the
have
heat. There are a lot of
willpower.
places do that, right? And that's really not good. I don't like it because it's more heat. It's absorbing. It's sizzling when it comes to the table. It's going to overcook. It's going to keep cooking. So my suggestion is ask for no hot plate
Okay.
and let it rest when it shows up at the table. And if it comes on a hot plate, put another hot plate. And again, you got to get yourself past the point where you're going to eat this smoking, piping hot. The flavor's going to be better, not piping hot. Anyway, let's cut some steaks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frankie,
little taste
you're going to have to
test.
move for this. All right, so the first one we're going to cut into here, we're good here with the resting.
Can we get a close up of the knife just before we get
This is a
started ripping
Nikos
into
knife.
this
It's
thing?
not super sharp because I didn't bring my sharpener thing. But here we go. We're going to cut into this.
What a savage cut.
Is that the technique? You just,
You just get into it, babe. Oh,
I don't
man.
cut my own steak, but I've certainly never seen anybody do it like that.
So there we go. Perfect medium rare for anybody who's
Don't
concerned.
cut your own steak.
There we go.
I'm an only child. We talked about this.
So while we're cutting this, let's talk about what you do for LFD.
Well, I go around and I cook steaks. No, I'm the vice president of sales for LFD. I've been with them for 10 years now. And I run the national sales here in the United States. And it grows as we grow. We do a lot of international business. A lot of that's been on hold and been delayed slightly over the last year.
Okay.
But I'm the VP of sales for them. I run our sales team and I run the national U.S. sales for them. And yeah, it's been awesome, man. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to travel around the U.S. to go to cigar retailers and travel to some of the best places in the country and experience great things. And so I've been in that position for about 8 years, but I've been in the company for 10. I was a sales rep before. And yeah, it's just a really special company. Lito and Inez are like family to me, and it's been really special. It's a unique company. We own our own farms, factories. We do everything in house. One thing I've said on shows recently, people are like, "Oh, you're always back ordered." Well, there's a lot of demand for the product, and if you were depending on me to make your life, there's going to be times where we don't have cigars. So fortunately, there's other products out there, and I think that's one thing that's unique about the cigar industry. We all play nice together. There are other cigars. Like tonight, we smoked some Davidoffs together, and so it's been special to be with them, and it's been unique. We're obviously in transition time with the current environment with business. Things are changing, and the way business works is changing. But yeah, it's been really fun, and I really enjoyed what I've done with them, and the best is yet to come, hopefully. And we will be making more cigars, I assure you. As soon as the Dominican Republic allows us to make more and be at more, a higher level of production, we'll be from there. But again, it's always been about quality, consistency. It may not be a cigar that hits your profile and your flavor. You may like something differently, but the quality is never going to be in question. And I think we have a very loyal following because of that.
Yeah, and I would say that's a reputation. People know that they have to wait for your cigar because it has that quality. And that's kind of like a cult following that you guys have. So
yeah, it's definitely, again, sales is in my title, so I'd love to make endless amounts of cigars for compensatory purposes. But quality consistency is an important thing, and that's been something that's been a benchmark of the company over the last 27 years. And said times are challenging now in regards to ability to meet demand, but it's still very good. And I said this last night on the show. I'm like, the only reason these companies are backordered is because, hats off to the consumers. The consumers have outsmoked the premium cigars ability, the premium cigar industry's ability to make product. Not just us. There's a lot of challenging situations. People are backed up, and so hats off and congratulations to the cigar consumer for outsmoking the business. His worst problems to have, right?
it's a beautiful problem.
By the way, speaking of beautiful problems, we got so much steak.
How did this come out?
Perfect.
On a scale of 1 to 10, let's give this a grade.
Hold it up again.
I'm gonna give this an 8.5 in
That's-
terms of perfection.
That's such a fucking
Where's it
rookie score,
lacking?
bro. I mean, I thought you were a stoolie. Like, where's the decimal points?
It was an 8.5. It was an 8.5.
Yeah.
It was still like a round number. 8.5
Yeah,
still
it's a
like a round number. That was a rookie
yeah.
score.
Yeah.
So we're gonna hit this with some salt. Now I'm gonna give it an 8. I'll give it an 8.6 now. I can count back on it, but
There you go.
we're gonna give it an 8.6. No, it's very, very consistent. I'm happy with it. Yeah, it's delicious. But yeah, it was good. So 8.5, 9, 8.6, 9. That's in round up 9.
Okay.
Came out good. So let's try it.
The official taste test.
All right. So
Laura, it's cut for you.
We've got
I know,
filet
that's
mignon.
just how I like it.
we have prime filet mignon,
Okay.
prime New York strip, and prime 60-plus dry-aged Magic City gin-infused ribeye.
That's what I'm going for
Okay,
first.
yeah, I want the Magic City first.
So this is the dry. This is the Magic City.
That's
right
a
here.
Magic City.
This is a big
Okay.
bite. Okay.
There you go, Flynn.
That's rib cap you just had, so that's going to be delicious.
Delicious.
This is really good.
Phenomenal job.
Thank you.
It's the
Beautiful.
crust for me.
That's
I like
the key.
that little bit of crunch.
You can get the crust with the rest and have a nice medium rare steak.
Yeah.
And it's consistently cooked through, so it's not raw. Like a lot of things that turn people off is when you do like medium rare at a steakhouse. The middle is raw. It doesn't have to be that way. It should be cooked consistently through. So like medium rare should be a really acceptable temperature.
I have a lot of texture issues. Like I don't like certain foods because of that. I like the crunch on that. That makes it for
I
me.
want
and
to
that
try
makes
this
it more
middle piece
enjoyable.
right here.
If you ate this blind,
Get that right there. Oh yeah.
you just say this tastes great.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be like, oh, this is rare. This is man, this is delicious. So we as people here in the United States, when it comes to steak, we eat steak with our eyes.
Yeah.
Because they ask you go to steakhouse and you're like, oh, you go to Morton's, and they're like, oh, I'd like this medium rare. And they're like, oh, a cool pink center.
It even has like the pictures on
They
the menu.
explain
most of
it
the
by
time.
colors.
Yeah.
It should be explained by texture and flavor. How do you want this to taste?
How do you want it to taste? What's the key?
Do you want it to have moisture, tons of flavor, depth, this and that? Then you'd eat medium rare. But people order steak based off of eyes.
Are we waiting to eat another piece?
Nope, go ahead.
You
Can
dig in.
reach my fork over there.
Okay, you'll try this one.
Okay. Not too big.
This one looks good.
Okay.
That's the strip.
Okay.
Strip.
And it pairs so well with this. I mean, to think that you can't smoke a cigar in a steakhouse it's a sin.
Ludicrous.
Yeah.
Ludicrous. Literally what we're doing right now was legal 15, 20 years ago everywhere.
Yeah.
You'd have a cigar and you'd eat and smoke while you were doing it.
Yeah.
You'd have a nice glass of red wine. You'd have steak. For me right now, what we're doing, there's very few things that are better than this.
Tom Selleck would never stand for that.
That's such an irrelevant name.
Tom Selleck. What do you mean it's an irrelevant? Like, he's so cool.
Is he cool?
He's on Blue Bloods.
He's. Say it again.
He's on Blue Bloods.
I'm still missing it.
You've never seen Blue Bloods? The show Blue Bloods?
I just heard Blue Bullets for
Blue Bloods?
for 2 or 3 times. I was like, oh, see, it's like only.
B-roll's gonna be magic.
I've never heard of Boo
Yes,
Blacks.
I have heard of Blue Bloods. Yes,
Bloods.
I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is that, a crime show?
Yeah, it's like a Chicago cop show. And Donnie Wahlberg's on it.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I've been to Wahlburgers.
It's same,
The
same,
only
but
reason I've heard of
different.
Blue Bloods, my parents watch it. Ask your mom about it. She probably watches it. Every
Don't
woman,
ask him.
every woman,
Yo, cut
they
that.
love Tom Selleck, man. These women love Tom Selleck.
It's the mustache.
And when he also was like,
Oh,
so the guy in the show,
That's who Tom Selleck
Yeah.
is. Okay.
You
so
didn't
the
know
guy
this
that
whole
plays,
time.
the guy that plays the guy in Blue Bloods that plays his dad, plays Tom Selleck's father. Tom Selleck's like 76.
I was here to say,
His
Tom
dad's-
Selleck was old on
The guy
Friends.
who plays the dad is like 78, and it's his father.
So he's
in
like
the show.
2 years older than him.
Yeah, but Tom Selleck's had a lot of shit done.
He's got the Botox.
Something. I don't know.
When Tom Selleck was on Friends, he was a whole person that could drink older than Monica. That was the age reference.
He was dating Monica.
Yeah, he was her eye doctor and friends with her dad. That was the whole storyline.
He could what? Drink?
He was a whole person that could drink older than her.
What
He
is
was
that?
21 years older than her.
Yeah,
Oh,
like that
gotcha.
was like
Look at Flynn.
that was the punchline.
Flynn loves it.
This is delicious.
Yeah, it's good, right?
The wine, the cigar, the meat. Such a beautiful pairing.
And dry aged meat has a little bit of funk to it. Grab it lighter.
Yeah.
So it has a little bit of funk. So some people don't like it. It's a little awkward for them. But again,
Did you get the gin one?
yeah, that was the first one you
Well, you
tried.
didn't know.
So I tell people, like, be open to the funk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because it's not overwhelming. Now, if you give it to people and you had it, people are like, oh, this is, you
When
gotta
you say
understand the
funk, like
flavor.
what am I looking for? Or like,
Like
what is?
mushroom?
Do I like mushrooms?
No, like aftertaste like mushroom.
Oh, okay.
That is so good. I couldn't describe the flavor difference between the gin one and the non-gin one.
It's tough.
It has a bit more bitterness
Mm-hmm.
almost,
It does.
but it's perfect with the combination.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I bet that rum one,
That's
the
over the top.
rum infused one.
When you put them side by side, the challenge here is that the porterhouse was dry aged for an extended period of time too. Really, what I should have done is just picked a regular prime porterhouse and no dry aged, and then you would really see a dynamic difference.
Now
I
we
think
know.
you should come back later on in the season, and we'll do an episode of Chopped.
I'm down.
We could get some competition going.
We can do it.
I think we should all bring a mystery ingredient.
We do it at house.
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
steak,
We could get a real kitchen.
and then we'll just fight to the death. You can wear your Crocs.
I could
Phil can wear his Crocs.
I love Crocs.
I'm
You
not
have
going to wear
Crocs
any
too?
Crocs. I want
I
to go
wore
on the record
Crocs.
right
I
now.
worked at Starbucks and I wore Crocs with socks every day.
But I couldn't believe they let him wear open-toed shoes.
I knew there was a reason I loved you. Crocs aren't open-toed.
They have holes in them.
Vents.
Vented toes.
They're vents for your speed. They help your speed.
Does it make you more aerodynamic?
Absolutely.
Doesn't not.
Thank you, Flynn.
If you put the back on, you're in turbo mode.
That's attack mode.
Sport mode.
Sport mode.
The front is relax mode. It's when they're
Yeah.
folded over.
But when you're working, you got to flip the back and you're going 100 miles an hour. This was a beautiful episode with John Carney from LFD Cigars, my mango smoothie from McDonald's, Laura Clark, and we'll cheers to that.
Cheers. Cheers.
Don't sweat the petty stuff, but always pet the sweaty stuff.
Sweaty smoothies.
Cheers.